I don't know if anyone watches these videos, or if I'm having any kind of effect at all. So I just sit here eating my Batman calzone, reading my comic books, until the time when that light hits the sky. And then it's time for me to go to work, to present my opinion, for I am a YouTube film reviewer. Hi guys, Chester Westford here. So it's finally time for me to review Matt Reeves' The Batman. Ever since the first trailer came out for this, I have been super hyped for this movie. I know I haven't talked about it on the channel because, well, although originally intended to be a channel reviewing everything I was interested in, it mainly became a Doctor Who channel since, well, I'm a big Doctor Who fan and that seemed to be what you guys liked. But yeah, I do like to venture off every now and then into the DC, Marvel, Universal monsters, anything that interests me. And one thing that does interest me is Batman. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I have always loved the characters, and while I've certainly not read all there is, I have read a great number of the graphic novels and comic books, grew up watching some of the animated stuff, the movies. I had a ton of action figures, etc. And what they were saying this movie was going to be really intrigued me. But yeah, first I'll give my spoiler-free thoughts, and then I'll maybe dive a little deeper into spoiler territory for those who have seen the film. So here we go. My review of Matt Reeves' The Batman. As I say, I've been super excited for it. The Batman. Did it live up to my expectations? Yeah, I would say that it very much did. I wouldn't say it exceeded them. It was pretty much what I expected this movie to be. It's not just a superhero movie, but also a noir-style film that focuses largely on Batman as being the world's greatest detective. Just as Matt Reeves said it would, and man, was that a fantastic way to go. It's not a complete reinvention. Every iteration of Batman shows off his detective skills somewhat, but not, I would say, to this degree. Matt Reeves really did deliver exactly what he promised, with the grittiest, scariest, and yet one of the most hopeful takes on Batman yet. It's 3 hours long, but it doesn't feel like it. Every moment felt necessary and gripped me right from the opening shot all the way to the end. I'd give it 4 out of 5 Batarangs. Well, maybe 4.5. But yeah, now I'm going to go into territory talking a little more about the characters and stuff. I might drop some spoilers here and there. Not sure where this is going to go. But yeah, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I'd go back and watch it and then come back, because I'm not going to keep away from spoilers. Okay, I want to talk about a few things in particular. I'm going to keep this short. I mean, I could go on for hours about this movie, but I don't have that kind of time, and neither do you. So we open the movie with what I think is both a positive and negative point. The Riddler. This version of the character is very different from anything we've seen before. And for what they were trying to accomplish with him, they did an excellent job. Admittedly, when I first saw the costume way back and we started to get more information about how he was going to be portrayed, I was kind of against it at first. I'm more used to, like the animated series Riddler or the 66 Riddler or the Arkham games Riddler. I thought he was done great there. But now that I've seen it and seen what they were trying to accomplish and what Paul Dano did with the role, he kind of won me over quite a bit. It was so creepy. Oh, that moment when he just appears in the mayor's office in the beginning, gives me chills. So well done. I can't wait to see what sort of takes Matt Reeves gives on other classic Rogues Gallery members in future movies. Like, I would love to see his interpretation of the Joker. I know Reeves has just said it was a world-building cameo at the end there, and man, that was a terrific end scene with them both laughing and the camera pulling back in Arkham. Oh my goodness, that was, chills. But judging by the silhouette and what Reeves has said about, taking inspiration from the original and from the old silent film, The Man Who Laughs, could be so creepy. Yeah, I hope the Joker does make an appearance in future movies. Maybe not necessarily in the next one. Build up to him a little more. I know Matt Reeves said something about, and he didn't say he was going to do this, but he said something about maybe doing someone like Mr. Freeze. I would love to see that, and then maybe like Personally, I'd love a team up in the end, maybe of multiple villains. Probably not going to happen, but I think that'd be great. But yeah, back to the main villain of this one, the Riddler. Still not my favorite version of the character, but it really fit what they were trying to do. Paul Dano did an excellent job in the role, and yeah, I'll accept it. It was well done. As for the other characters, you can't tell me that's not the most comic accurate Selena Kyle Catwoman we've ever had on the live action cinema screen. Zoe Kravitz was terrific, and I hope she's in future movies as well. And her chemistry with Robert Pattinson, just so well written, so well acted. Best representation of the Bat and the Cat, and I hope we see more of that. And speaking of the Bat, while most of the other Batman movies present him at kind of an early stage in his career as Batman, this is definitely definitive early Batman. Robert Pattinson did such a great job depicting the struggle of trying to figure out exactly how to be the Batman and what that means. His journey over the film of going from pure vengeance to a figure of hope for the innocent was just excellent, and really one of the reasons this movie benefited from being 3 hours long. The journey could have been done in a much shorter time, but probably not as well. And I just really liked the journey. You know, like, I know a lot of people love like the Frank Miller Batfleck type of Batman who's all jaded and grumpy and lost faith and everything, but I don't know, I find those depictions a bit too depressing. I like this where there's a struggle there, there's darkness, but he also learns that there's hope at the end. And that to me is when Batman is at its best, when it's kind of a mixture of both. I have heard that people are criticizing Pattinson for not showing a difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman and calling it a one-note performance, but I think that's kind of the point. He is the Batman, and he hasn't quite figured out how to be Bruce Wayne, or that he even needs to be Bruce Wayne yet. This is like really early year 2 Batman. And there's that scene where Alfred is trying to convince him to go to the board meetings, and he says he doesn't care, and you know, his Bruce Wayne persona, I think, will come later on. Maybe, like, they're planning to do a trilogy. I think they'll build up to more classic Bruce Wayne Batman persona later on. And I'm looking forward to seeing that journey. But yeah, this is still early days. And I think it's more realistic for there not to be a difference at this point. You know, I mean, Batman and the Gotham Project is kind of his whole thing. He was traumatized at a young age, seeing his parents murdered. It just kind of makes sense to me. I think he'll get there in the end, though. And speaking of Alfred, the one piece of casting I wasn't sure about when I first heard it was Andy Serkis. And I'm ashamed to say all I could think was Gollum is going to be Batman's butler? But that was kind of as unfair of me as it was unfair for people saying, that Twilight kid is going to be the new Batman? Horrible idea. No, I will stress that I never put down Andy Serkis as being a horrible casting, just a surprising casting. And, yeah, he was terrific. He was a great Alfred, worked really well with Pattinson on the chemistry. The only thing is I still kind of miss the days of snarky Alfred like in the animated series, but still, for the story this film needed to tell, he was perfect, and can't wait to see where their relationship goes now that it's grown into a better place by the end of the film. And next, as good as Gary Oldman was, I think Jeffrey Wright may be my favorite live-action Gordon. There's just something about the way he played the role and his interactions, and I'm sorry I keep using this word so much, his chemistry with Batman. I think it was something we've never seen before, even in the comics. It's kind of like, you know, they're working together. Batman may be a little smarter, but Gordon is a little more mature and able to be almost like more mature and level-headed in some parts, like in that scene where he stops him from beating up the cops in that one part, and like calling him chief and kid, and I just love that stuff. And they had some pretty amusing moments too, like when they're gonna go in the orphanage and Batman's like, no guns, and Gordon's just like, that's your thing, man. I love that. That was so perfect. Again, looking forward to seeing more of that in the trilogy. Looking forward to seeing his journey to become commissioner. I just love all the casting in this movie so much. Like, I have to mention Colin Farrell as the Penguin. I mean, this is also another perfect casting. When I first heard he was going to play the part, I thought, oh yeah, that's perfect. and the makeup is great. The only thing is, I wish he dressed a little nicer. Like, in the comics, originally he was called the Penguin partly because of how he dressed. Here it appears to be more physical stuff, kind of like how his face is and how he walks. That's just a pedantic nitpick, though. Colin Farrell did an excellent job all around. From the accent to that little penguin waddle he does when Batman and Gordon leave him tied up after their interrogation. I do like that this movie had, like, little subtle light touches like that. Like, it was a very dark film, but it wasn't so dark like BVS or Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like, those are good films, but they're, like, almost completely devoid of any kind of lightness. And some people like that, it's just not necessarily, and I did like those movies, but it's just not necessarily my preferred thing. I like there to be a little bit of lightness. I also think it's more realistic. Like, none of the humor in the movie was humor for the sake of being humor. It just grew from who the characters were and stuff, like those moments between Gordon and Batman. Yeah, I'm also intrigued to see where Penguin goes from here. They're supposed to do that new HBO Max series, confirmed to be about his rise to power following the vacuum left by the now murdered Carmine Falcone. That sounds intriguing. Speaking of Falcone, that's the last character I'm going to talk about here. Another fantastic performance in this movie by John Turturro. I mean, it was well acted. He did exactly what was needed for the character. It wasn't like an overplayed, overacted gangster. It was very subtle, just what was needed. And his relationship with Selena Kyle, going into this with the obvious Long Halloween inspiration, among other inspirations, of course. I did wonder if they were going to go the route of the whole, like, she may be his daughter thing. I'm sure most comic book fans expected it. I mean, I didn't expect it to be so blatantly stated and such a big part of the movie, but I thought maybe it would be a little more subtle. Not a complaint, though. It worked really well for me and worked so well to add for Selena's character in the movie. Again, I just think they all these character arcs were just done so well and so intriguingly. I use that word a lot in this review. But yeah, as I say, I'm going to wrap this up now. Getting a bit long. Not a perfect movie. I'm a little conflicted about the Riddler's depiction, as I said. A little bit about the Penguin, too, but not as much. But yeah, they worked for what they were in this movie, so I'm not really complaining. I could go on and on about some of my favorite moments, like that part in the beginning where they introduce the fear Batman has created, or like all the monologuing stuff, or the use of the Batmobile in the movie, or all the Easter eggs like the owl on the one card that the Riddler gives him, maybe a reference to the Court of Owls, maybe just a coincidence, the blatant Hush reference, or the terrific action sequences, like, oh man, that fight at the end with the goons, the Riddler goons, yeah, that's what I'm calling them. I know that's not what they are, but boy, I know everyone goes on about the BVS warehouse fight, but I mean, come on, man. I think that ending fight in this topped that for me. Well, I should probably end this review. It's gone on longer than any other review I've done of, well, anything, I think. I do have other stuff I need to do today. As I say, I could go on and on. I hesitate to say this is the greatest Batman film or the most definitive. I mean, all the Batman films focus on different aspects of the lore and the character. I did like the aspects this one focused on, but, some people like other things, like Batfleck's Frank Miller vibes. I'm not really into that. I think The Dark Knight Returns is extremely overrated. That's just my opinion, though. Probably gonna get a lot of hate comments for that, but oh well. Yeah, this is probably the Batman I prefer. I hope we get to explore more stuff in this universe, like, maybe some more of the Bat family. Give us a Robin. Give us a Batgirl. Give us maybe some villains that haven't been explored very much. Give us a great version. I would love to see a great version. I think Matt Reeves would do like a terrific version of Scarecrow. I would love to see his Scarecrow. There's just so much this whole Batverse can give us. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. But what did you guys think? I'd love to discuss it with you in the comments below. Did you like the portrayal of Gotham and its inhabitants in this film? Do you have any theories as to where it can go from here? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you later. Bye.